Welcome back. We always try to make sure that we give you a very new sort of experience, and Sri Lanka right now, since we're in a post-war situation trying to develop ourselves, reconciliation is something that plays a vital role in this kind of situation. Today we have some very special guests who have joined us in our studios, and of course this is not about political reconciliation but altogether something on a different level. I think the best person to speak about this and explain as to the activities that they're doing would be the individual right next to me, who happens to be Paul. But before that, I must greet everyone here. So, Ivan. Great, lovely. Okay, so let's talk about exactly your involvement, Paul, here, and about this international organization. What exactly is it, and what kind of work do you do?
Global Reconciliation started in 2002, and it started in response to massive violence in the world.
That's right.
And we were trying to work out how best to respond to that. And it seemed to us that lots of roadmaps had been developed, lots of peace talks had occurred,
That's right.
and not much had happened. That underneath the surface there were lots of people who had great dreams and hopes for something different. And so what we did, we started working in the Middle East, in the Balkans, in such places, and working quietly beneath the scene, beneath the level of politics,
Nice.
to work with people who were included politicians, but they didn't come to us as country leaders. They came and worked with us as local people. And we started thinking that reconciliation should be about what people do on the ground rather than just big roadmaps in the air. And so, for example, we worked in the Balkans in the aftermath of the war that was in Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo, and we brought together Nobel Prize winners, we brought together a team of countries, 30 countries came together to actually talk about reconciliation in that place. And what we found was that people like the mothers of Srebrenica got a voice for the first time. They could talk about the loss of their sons. 10,000 boys and men died in a particular massacre, and they felt they hadn't been heard properly. And despite all the big international talks that had been occurring, there hadn't been that quiet sense that people sat down and talked with each other and shouted at each other.
Nice.
And cried together and talked about what is to be done. They didn't just say sorry. It wasn't trying to direct it towards apologies. It was trying to direct it towards people from different cultures across those divides of great tension, working together for social change.
Amazing. That's definitely a extremely worthy cause that you're trying to implement, and especially this group, Global Reconciliation, happens to definitely reach out to the grassroots levels itself and help solve this issue. So now, speaking of this particular organization, you might be wondering exactly what they're doing here in Sri Lanka, traveling all the way from Australia. So what exactly is your involvement here in Sri Lanka? What kind of projects are you all undertaking?
So this project is the first of what we hope to be an enduring conversation between Australia and Sri Lanka. And on this occasion we're using sport as a vehicle for reconciliation. So we're here with a number of AFL footballers.
All right.
AFL is our indigenous game in Australia, Aussie rules as we call it. And we've brought the footballers over to interact with a number of communities here. Sri Lanka Unites particularly, and Foundation of Goodness with Kushil Gunasekera in Senegama, who's also involved with Murali, the cricketer. So to come and actually learn from Sri Lanka about what's actually happening on the ground already, with a view to taking that back to Australia and thinking about what we can do with our own reconciliation issues there.
It's lovely. That was, of course, Peepa telling exactly the kind of understanding and the mutual aspect of Australia coming into Sri Lanka and working with us. So now, you spoke about footballers coming in. I know someone who is with us, who's really into it. So Brad, let's talk about this. How has the experience been so far, and the exposure you've got over here?
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. It's quite a unique game that we've got, and the ball's in odd shape, and it's been received really warmly amongst the kids, and we've played games with the kids, and they've loved the game and everything it stands for. So in terms of why we're here and trying to transfer our experience back home, it's been really, really valuable, and we've enjoyed the beautiful country that you have.
Lovely. So that's something I would always like to hear, hearing that Sri Lanka is being a lovely experience for anyone who's traveling over here. So with that extremely positive statement from Brad, we're going to talk to someone with a bit of a Sri Lankan touch, Ishika. So what's your involvement with Global Reconciliation, and how exactly are we integrating Australia and Sri Lanka and coordinating the entire project?
Sure. So I work for the Australian Football League based in
right.
Melbourne, Australia, and I've been working very closely with this group for the last few months in coordinating this. As you can imagine, it's not an easy process to bring 13 people over to a country that most of them have never travelled to. So working very closely with our sponsors, Lanka and the Aitkenspence Group, who've been hosting us over here, just coordinating all the ground arrangements. It's been quite a unique experience, a different experience for myself because I am a Sri Lankan-born Australian. I've been living in Australia for the last 25 years, so I've always come to Sri Lanka, as a holiday. But this is quite a unique experience where I myself am looking at Sri Lanka in a different perspective, and looking at sport and the ways that we can use sport as a vehicle for reconciliation. This really is just phase one, the very first step of what we anticipate to be a long-term project between both countries.
A long-term project, now that's something that definitely will catch anyone's attention. So what kind of plans do you have as a group over here in Sri Lanka, and what do you plan for the future with us?
So the next phase that we're thinking about is hosting Sri Lankan athletes back in Australia.
All right.
So we would most likely invite a Sri Lankan team to come and participate in the AFL's International Cup, where there's 26 countries that don't usually play the game come and compete, and we support them to do that. And we would like to then take those athletes out to our Indigenous communities. So the biggest reconciliation issues we have in Australia are between are about the integration of our Indigenous communities with the rest of Australia. So we'd like to take those athletes out and share the lessons between the two countries. And we were also likely to stay very involved with a number of organisations here, such as Sri Lanka Unites and Kushil's Foundation, to affect some further work in Sri Lanka in the north particularly.
One of the things we want to do is work between the northeast and the southwest.
All right.
And set up two places which can have exchange between the children,
All right.
where they bring football teams down and cricket teams down to the south, and then a team from the south goes up to the north. And we use the children to do the reconciliation because they play together. So with the concept of sport being used in this process under the banner of playing together is that by doing things together, people will recognise their similarities and strengths, as well as maintaining their differences and knowing their deep cultural differences, but recognising that you can play together in a comfortable or relatively comfortable way, because they'll always be very competitive.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so the long term for us is that universities in Australia, like RMIT University and Monash University, a series of organisations in Australia like the VFL and the Australian Players Association, they will be supporting this process for the long term. And we would like Sri Lanka and Australia to be much more united in thinking about reconciliation. I think we have a lot to learn from what's happening here, and I think Australia can offer some sort of partnership in the process of the reconciliation.
So you see a lot of potential here in definitely improving relationships between the two countries. So that's something that's definitely that we, of course, as Sri Lankans are looking forward. Ishika, I think you'll be joining me with that, yes?
Absolutely.
So all the best. That's all I have to tell you, and I'm extremely grateful that you chose Sri Lanka to come over here, and of course make sure that you share all that exposure with us. So hopefully things will work out really well, and wishing all of you a lovely stay here in Sri Lanka. It's all that we've got ready for you today, and wishing you the very best and thanking you for your presence. We're going to leave you for the day. Thank you so much.